On Tuesday, the 9th of January, just earlier this year, a 13-year-old girl named Naziah Harris was last seen heading off her school bus in Detroit, Michigan, before she would mysteriously disappear. The next day, her family reported her missing to the Detroit Public School Police after she failed to return home. But given the incredibly troubling situation, they decided to immediately pass the case off to the US Marshals for a more thorough investigation. Searches were then conducted across the city of Detroit, and the police began to investigate the possibility that foul play was involved in Naziah's disappearance. However, after months of intense searching, the investigating officers were still unable to find any concrete proof of what happened to the missing teenager. So eventually the case began to grow cold, with leads becoming increasingly harder to find. That is, until the police would respond to a completely separate incident in March, when it was revealed that Naziah's aunt had been dating a registered sex offender around the time of her disappearance, after a different teenage girl had come forward to accuse him of misconduct. So, putting the pieces together, police began to look at this man as a potential suspect in Naziah's case as well, as the allegations brought forward by this other girl were being tried at court. However, on the day of the trial, his lawyer suddenly came forward with new information and managed to get the court appearance postponed until September 13th, leaving the families of those connected to his alleged crimes frustrated and desperate for answers. But with this suspect remaining innocent until proven guilty, the investigation into Naziah's case continues until more evidence is brought forward, as they try to understand what really happened to the missing teenager. Naziah Harris was born in the year 2010 to her devoted mother and distant father Mervyn Jennings in the city of Detroit, alongside the rest of her loving family. Little is known about her childhood, but what we do know is that she was mostly raised by her auntie Shannon, who for whatever reason decided it would be for the best to keep her away from her father Mervyn, so for most of her younger years he didn't even know where she lived. But despite these issues, growing up, Naziah didn't seem to let this affect her, as she would spend a lot of time with the rest of her family, including her cousin Roxy, who she was particularly close with, and together they grew up with a similar mindset of making the most of what they had. As Naziah moved into her teenage years, however, she found herself with less free time as she would begin to attend middle school, with her auntie Shannon opting to send her to J.E. Clark Preparatory Academy at the age of 13. However, just a few months into her first year of middle school, it was alleged that Naziah's auntie had begun to see a new man, who at the time carried a long rap sheet of abuse from his past, with many locals claiming he had fathered multiple children with underage girls in the area. But despite the clear warning signs, nobody was able to convince Shannon about the mistake she was making, and so, just 4 months into the school year, an event would take place that would send shockwaves throughout the community, when the teenage girl would mysteriously disappear on that fateful day in January. On Tuesday, the 9th of January, the 13-year-old girl was packing up as she finished her day at school, and in typical fashion then headed over to the bus to get a lift home. At approximately 2:50 p.m, Naziah was captured on a surveillance camera as she sat alone on the bus seat awaiting her stop, and then just a few short minutes later, the bus would pull up on the corner of Cornwall Street and 3 Mile Drive, where she would thank the driver and exit the bus as she would normally do every day. However, on this particular occasion, rather than walking straight back to her house, something out of the ordinary would occur, as Naziah would fail to return home that night, leaving her family worried sick as they imagined the horrific possibilities. But trying to remain positive, they held out hope that she would eventually turn up safe, given that she was known to stay out past her curfew from time to time. However, when the next day came with Naziah still remaining absent from the home, her auntie Shannon began to panic, and after attempting to call the teenager and bombarding her cell phone with messages, she ultimately accepted that the situation was far more concerning than first thought. So, with nowhere else to turn, Shannon Harris would eventually contact the Detroit Public School Police to inform them that her 13-year-old niece was missing and endangered. On Wednesday the 10th of January, the Detroit Public School Police would respond to a call from a concerned guardian as she pleaded with the officers to help find her loved one. By this point, Shannon had reached out to everybody she could think of, including close friends and family. But despite her efforts, not a single person came forward to say that they had seen Naziah that day, with her official last sighting being the moment she was captured on the surveillance camera of that bus. So, given the fact that Naziah was a missing child, the police immediately raised the alarm bells and contacted the US Marshals for backup with the case. Federal law enforcement were also brought in to assist, and together the officials worked hard to find Naziah, with the community also coming together to spread the word by putting up posters around the neighborhood. Police crews were very thorough with their search efforts, as they scoured a nearby pond located near Gratiot and 14 Mile, with hope that evidence would be uncovered, but also concerns that they may find a body. However, their efforts would unfortunately not lead to any new evidence, as nothing was found in the pond. But despite their misfortune, the Detroit police would later come out to say that the department's Major Crimes Division was going to continue the search, this time in the nearby area of Clinton Township, also asking the public for help as they begged anyone with information about the case to call in immediately. So, with the case in a constant state of escalation, hopes were high amongst the community that it wouldn't be too long until a lead would come forward that would aid in the search for Naziah. But little did they know that a potential suspect had been hiding in plain sight the entire time, when he was suddenly arrested for crimes against a minor, just 2 months on from Naziah's disappearance. On Monday the 4th of March, a man named Jarvis Ramon Butts was arrested by the Detroit police after a teenage girl came forward to accuse him of an offense dating back to June of 2015. According to her, this was not the only occasion as well, as she would go on to accuse Jarvis of multiple counts over the course of an entire year, with the aim of ensuring he would be severely punished for his wrongdoing. So, given these egregious accusations, alongside his long rap sheet of past offences, the police immediately burst into action and brought the ex-convict into the station to find out more information about his involvement. From here, he was then heavily interrogated by the detectives, eventually being able to extract a piece of evidence that would potentially seal his fate. But on top of this, the police were also able to uncover that he had been dating a woman in the recent months who just so happened to be the official guardian of the missing teenager Naziah Harris. So, upon learning this valuable piece of information, the police then started to look at Jarvis as a potential suspect in her case, given that he was not only a convicted sex offender, but that he was also allegedly living in the same house as Naziah around the time of her disappearance. However, despite the clear and obvious connections between the two parties, to this day the police have still not been able to get a confession out of him, and therefore they are continuing to investigate all avenues in the case, with the hopes that it won't be too long until justice is finally served. Now, unfortunately, as far as the official investigation goes, this is all we know for now. But given the fact that Naziah may have been living with a convicted sex offender during the time of her disappearance, this has left the community almost certain that the guilty suspect has been identified, with Jarvis set to be in court later this year for another crime. Her family, however, appear to have mixed emotions about the situation, as if Jarvis is in fact responsible for the teenager's disappearance, they are understandably worried about what that means for Naziah. After all, she has now been officially missing for over 7 months, so alongside the incredibly concerning details that surround her case, it's no surprise that they are starting to feel that the likelihood of her safe return is only growing weaker as the days pass. So with this in mind, and as we wait for the courts to decide if Jarvis is guilty or not, let's get into some of the potential theories. Now, if you are a returning viewer to my channel, then you know that at this point in the video I will usually attempt to rattle off a number of different theories as to why Naziah disappeared and what could have happened to her. But given the recent update regarding Jarvis Butts, I find it extremely difficult to imagine any other suspect that could be responsible. So rather than wasting time theorizing any other possibilities, I thought it would be better to simply look a bit deeper into this particular suspect, as there are honestly so many reasons why the public are vilifying him. First of all, this man, who is currently in his 40s, has been involved in several different cases over the years related to offences towards children under the age of consent. In fact, within the local community, he is known as somebody who specifically preys upon younger girls, and is even rumoured to have fathered several different children with these underage girls over the years. But that's not all, as he also has accusations against him for abuse against older women, including the very person he was supposedly dating, who also happened to be Naziah's parental guardian. Now, I can neither confirm or deny if the following information is accurate, so for legal reasons I have to say that all of this information is only alleged until proven in court, so please take what I'm about to say with a pinch of salt. However, it seems to be unanimous across the community that Jarvis was dating Naziah's auntie Shannon, and was even staying in the same house at one point. It is also rumoured that Shannon knew of his past convictions, which makes this decision all the more harrowing. But to make matters even worse, the reasoning that many have been putting behind why Naziah disappeared is that Jarvis may have gotten her pregnant, and so, as a means of hiding the evidence, he may have committed a truly vile act in order to save himself. Now, once again, let me just say that this is only a theory for now, and no evidence has been officially shared with the public to back this up. But if these allegations were in fact true, then I wouldn't be surprised if Jarvis disposed of Naziah's body somewhere that the police would struggle to find it, such as the Detroit River, which is only located a short drive away from her last official sighting. However, before I get too carried away here, I must remind you that until we have a definitive answer in this case, we have to stay vigilant that anything is possible. So until that day comes, I will continue to pray that Naziah can somehow find a way to return home to her family, as if there's one thing I've learnt after covering so many cases, is that miracles do sometimes happen. So while we wait for the police to come forward with more information, please make sure to share Naziah's story with as many people as you can, as in my opinion, her case deserves to have more media coverage than it's currently getting. And from their Facebook posts, I know her family would be eternally grateful for your support. Anyway, on that note, I think I'll leave this video here. But until next time, thank you so much for watching, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for updates on these stories. Also, if you're from the city of Detroit, or you just found this story interesting, make sure to check out the video on screen now, which covers the equally disturbing case of Janiah Thompson, who after 16 months of searching, remains a missing person to this day.